Good morning. Good morning. After hearing the wonderful voices here in this community, not only the choir, but David's wonderful rendition of the psalm, I've got an idea for a new TV show. St. Agatha's Got Talent. Great to be with you here today, and it's less than a week that I was installed as the Archbishop of Chicago and feel very much at home throughout the diocese, but in a special way I feel welcome here today because of your warmth and your greeting, and I thank you very much. We're all familiar with that experience of having lost someone, passing from this life. And most often what happens is that at a wake or at the funeral, afterwards at a reception, we begin to talk to one another and share stories about that person, to the point as though we begin to see almost that we have pieces of the puzzle of that person's life, things that he did or she did out of generosity, the ways in which we laugh at something they did or what they said, ways in which they accomplished things that perhaps were unknown to a wider crowd, but maybe to those in the workplace. It's like a puzzle put together to see the big picture. This feast day of Christ the King invites us to see the big picture. It is how God will view our whole life and all of creation at the end of time. And we get a glimpse of that today. And we are told to make sure that we do not allow ourselves to be paralyzed because of one moment or one incident, one happening, but to see the big picture of life. But sometimes those moments of heartache and loss and suffering, disrespect, can in some way be like a knot that ties us up. Some years ago, I was talking to an immigrant woman at her kitchen table. I always liked stories of immigrants to tell me about how is it that they came to this country. I said, so tell me, how is it that you came? I don't want to talk about it, she said. And so I pressed her. I was being a little nosy. And so finally she gave in and began to tell me that she was 18 years old. And her mother died during the First World War. And her father married 6 weeks later, but married somebody who was just 4 years older than she was, and they didn't get along. And so the father said to her, why don't you load up the vegetables and the produce from our farm and take them into town and sell them? You'll be gone all day, and the two of you won't be bickering. Well, in those days, in the early 20th century, women had to wear long dresses. She loaded up the cart, and it was pulled by a horse that she had to ride, and because of the long dress, she had to ride side saddle. Well, she didn't get that down very well, and she kept falling off. Every few hundred feet, falling down. And she never got to market. So after a few days of rotting vegetables, not getting to market, her father called her in and said, go to the United States where your brother is. You're no good to me. You're no good to me. And she said it with the sharpness of the pain in her heart that she suffered the first time she heard those words. You're no good to me. You're no good to me. I said, you never told anybody that story, did you? No. She said, I didn't want anybody to know. The last thing I heard my father say was, you're no good to me. You're no good to me. I tell you that story because that woman was my grandmother. And when we began to talk about how coming to this country opened for her all sorts of different things. Her children, her 4 children, her many, many grandchildren. How she had new opportunities. She met my grandfather. They got married early on after she arrived, and her life was so much more prosperous. She began to see the bigger picture, and that knot that she held on all the time was untied. The bigger picture gives us that opportunity to see how God has been working in our lives, even though there's something that seems to want to capture all the attention. I think it's important for all of us to remember that. And for me to remember that as I come here today. Because the bigger picture about St. Agatha's is not what happened in terms of what's in the newspapers or has been on the news, but each and every day here in this parish community, the way in which you have your Bible study programs, the ways in which your food pantries provide food for over 500 families every month, in which you have your From Stress to Bless classes for parents to help them build skills in creating homes that are peaceful, in your monthly community dinners on the second Saturday that serves over 200 members and community residents, in the Christmas basket, the outreach that you have, the ways also in which you have an after-school program here, St. Agatha Family Empowerment, that provides comprehensive program of tutoring, computer skills, life skills, drumming. I might come for that. You have partnerships with other communities that you assist, that you witness to. So yes, there is a bigger picture. There is a bigger picture to St. Agatha Parish. And when I began my ministry as the Archbishop, I said that I wanted to be a witness to the risen Lord, to where the Lord is rising, where the resurrection takes place. You know, the symbol of our archdiocese is the phoenix that rises up out of the ashes. But I know that I just can't talk about that. I have to come to a place like this and experience it. That's why I'm here today. I'm here today because I need to have an experience of the resurrection. Not just in my head, but to feel it, to see it firsthand. And so you are helping me, teaching me how to be the Archbishop of Chicago. It's also important to recall that part of the bigger picture are those who have served you faithfully for over 100 years. And I'm thinking of Father Matt Foley and your wonderful pastor. They tell the story of a couple in Australia that was going to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary, and they wanted a lot of friends there, and they wanted the priest who did the marriage. He was rather elderly at the time. But one other of the guests that they had was a famous Shakespearean actor. And during the party, the host said to the Shakespearean actor, "Would you please recite something, a poem, part of Shakespeare, or something else?" And so the Shakespearean actor turned to the priest and he said, "What would you like to hear, Father?" And the priest said, "I would like you to recite the 23rd Psalm, 'The Lord is my shepherd.'" And the Shakespearean actor said, "I will, but on the one condition, that you recite it after me." And so the man began, big booming voice, "The Lord is my shepherd. There is nothing I shall want." And he captured the attention of everyone, and people were moved. They heard this man who had great skill in language to recite a psalm that they were familiar with, but hear it in a new way. And when he had finished, people began to hear the quiet voice of this elderly priest reciting the same psalm. And he did it in such a quiet way and a moving way that people began to have tears roll down their eyes, their cheeks. And when he had finished, the Shakespearean actor said, "Father, I'm an actor, a good actor, and I know how to move people with language. But there's a difference between the two of us. I know the words, you know the shepherd." This man knows the shepherd, and so many others know the shepherd. And my heartbreak of the terrible things that one of your pastors did is, first of all, to those who were injured. And I apologize. I'm sorry. That's not the way it should happen. That's not the way we should treat each other. That's not a way a leader should act. But my heart breaks for the many good priests who seem to be suffering too. So pray for these good men who serve you. Pray that the Lord heal all of us in this moment. I have come here today to witness the resurrection, to witness to the resurrection, and I see it happening here in this community. I will be back. Because I need not just to know about the resurrection, but to know the resurrection. I need to know not something about the shepherd, but to know the shepherd. And I think that I will always find both here. Thank you.